How you doing? Yeah, I had a little change in plans. We're doing Mega Grow today. I thought today would be zombies too. It was just a miscommunication, and we're gonna do superpowers today. But some of the icons in the superpower list, we needed to find them from different sources because they were really, really bad. The ones on the internet were not very good. So we're doing Mega Grow. We're doing a tier list. Yeah, guys. Super dead. Alright, tier list Tuesday. I have to go, I have something at an hour and a half, so I have to just start here. We should be able to get this done in an hour. Gosh, I need to tighten this chair. It's become so squeaky. Maybe I'm just gonna grab I'll do that later. A screwdriver and just leave it on my desk here, so I'll do it sometime. Mega Grow out of nowhere, I know, right? It's just a technical thing. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. I could have delayed it till tomorrow and done a different class, but I kind of just wanted to stick to Tuesday. Thank you, Icy, for the raid. Don't worry, we'll do all of them. Everything's F except
Right,
Anasaurus.
we all know everything is F except Anasaurus.
Yeah. I don't even know how many S tier cards. No, there'll be a couple.
Shut up and take my money.
What is
Another
this?
one. I'm on a streak, baby.
Thank you so much, Keel, for the $3 donation. Really appreciate it. Another one. Another one. If you know what I'm saying. Slapstick comedy staple. I've never read the little descriptions. Oh my gosh, I can't. I guess I'm just gonna put it in the title of the stream. There. Captain Cucumber's overrated? I might put it in S tier. I haven't really decided yet. I kind of do them on the spot. I haven't written down a list of where I'm going to put these. I find the improv works. Oh my gosh. This chair is becoming so creaky. Creaky and freaky. I'm doing good. You can donate till your card runs out of cash? No, don't do that. Do I have a cough drop today? I'll go grab one.
Fry also, can you accept my friend request? Sorry if bad time.
Who is it? Who was that? Oh, Captain Ufamar. I will. Remind me at the end of the stream. If not, okay, I have to just start. I have an appointment at 4 o'clock. Whee! Whee! Let's go. Let's freaking go. Should I do them more than once a week? Maybe I'll just do them more often. I don't know. Tier list Thursdays. It starts with a T. Alright, let's just start. What's going on, everybody? This is Fry. So today we are doing the Mega Grow tier list. That's what I'm talking about. We are going to be going through all the cards. I'm going to give you an explanation of what their uses are, how good they are, and then we're going to be sticking them over here on this tier list, and we are just going to get started with Banana Peel. Here we go. So Banana Peel, not such a useful card. This does move a zombie from a lane. I feel like if this drew a card, this would actually be really good to sort of cycle through your deck. But the fact it conjures you a banana is sort of just of limited use. Bananas aren't the greatest cards in the game. There's a couple of them that are really bad. We'll be getting to those in a little bit. So there are definitely some uses. You can use this to shove things into environments like Spikeweed Sector. You can use this just to make a bad trade turn into a good trade. So I'm not going to say it's completely useless. Again, it gives you a banana, so it has banana synergy, which is not a very good synergy. I'll get to that when we talk about half banana. That'll be like in 4 more cards. Just because this card is just overall meh, doesn't really appear. I'm not going to say it's completely useless. I'm going to put this in C tier. And we'll swipe through the cards, move right along. Alright, here is Bong Choi. So this is a very powerful both control and aggro card. You can play this on the field on turn 1 in an empty lane, and if the opponent can't deal with it, which again they're not always able to deal with your 1-drops, it does 3 damage the first turn and then 2 consecutively, which is a decent aggro card. I think there's a lot better aggro cards in the game. I even prefer Click P, which is going to be the next card on the list as an aggro card, because you can play this, does 2 damage, and then if you get a second one it does 3, and it actually just has more health and more sustain. This does have very low health. I feel like Bong Choi is actually more useful as a control card. It's a very cheap way of doing 3 damage. For example, if they play Con Man or Headstone Carver on turn 1, this is one of the only plants in the game that can do that 3 damage for 1 cost, or even later in the game if they put a bunch of zombies on the field. You know, 3 for 1 is really good. Again, there is probably better. This doesn't control the amphibious lane. Obviously, it does work against gravestones. Works against gravestones better than Berry Blast does. Overall, this is just a fine card, definitely for budget players. Even the highest level of the game, Bong Choi is a viable option in a lot of decks for control and aggro, and therefore I'm going to be putting it in B tier. Alright, next we're going to talk about Click Peas. So this is actually, okay, this is a card that got nerfed. It used to be that it didn't have this thing where every single card that you play for the rest of the game, each of the Click Bees cost 1 more. This used to not exist. So it used to be that they would always cost 1. The first one would be a 2/2. The second one would still cost 1 and turn them into 3/3. Basically, if you got a few Click Bees in your hand, the game was donezo because you could just play them so quickly. Thankfully, they nerfed this card and made it now that each consecutive Click Bee still costs 1 more. This is still an amazing card, because a 1 costs 2/2, that's just standard. You need a card that's good stats, you just need the card to do something else. The fact that the second Click Bee is a 2 cost 3/3 is a broken card. Our 2 cost 3/3 plant is absolutely broken. It's so hard to control. It's aggro, tempo, control, everything. And thank you so much, Master, for the subscription. There you go. So, and that's if you don't have your original Click P on the field. Even if this got removed, the second one, a 2 cost 3/3 or a 3 cost 4/4, is just ridiculously amazing stats. If you have the first one on the field, then that turns into a 3/3 with it. Again, all the Click Ps really grow. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Really, just getting 2 Click Ps in the early game, it makes the game almost uncontrollable. This is a really great card. I'm gonna put this in A tier. I don't think it's gonna be quite be an S because it's limited in terms of the amount of uses of decks. It's not gonna be S. But this is a very viable option in a lot of decks. This also is a bean and a P, which does have some synergy. P decks aren't very good, but beans are. This actually is a very good setup for Gatling P in the late game, like if you're running an aggro deck. So again, you could definitely justify running Click P in an aggro deck. I've had a lot of success with that lately, because again, you are going to need a few Ps to set up the Gatling's ability. I'll get to Gatling later. Bean synergy also, again, if you're playing Green Shadow with Admiral Navy Bean, this is definitely a very good option too. So it has those synergies as well. Alright, we're going to move on to Half Banana. I sort of wish there were more bananas in the game. This card actually has very good stats. Being a 1 cost 2/2, it's fine. It needs something else, and something else is very good. is that all the bananas in your hand get +1/+1 when this dies. I mean, you can literally use this as a control card to make your hand just incredibly strong. The problem is there's just not a lot of bananas in the game. Let's see what bananas there are. So there's this. We got Banana Peel, which is not a minion, by the way. Captain Combustible has a banana launcher. That's a 2-cost, and again, giving the banana launcher, making it into a 1/4. I'm just trying to find the Kabloom class here. Making banana launcher, it's only with Captain Combustible that you have the banana launcher synergy. Again, this is very strong if it's a 1/4, but it's not really the end of the world. The other bananas you have in the Mega Grow class, more importantly, are Bananosaurus Rex. Again, this would start as a 4/4, which is better than 3/3. Even though it dies to Rocket that turn, it's still giving it a buff. And then you have like Banana Split, which I'm going to get to later, which again it's just not a very good card at all. So the fact that some of the banana cards in this game are pretty meh, like Banana Split, and even the good ones, there's just not a lot. Like if there was a good solid Mega Grow 2-cost and 3-cost banana, I think this card would be amazing, and you can actually make real banana synergies. If there ever was a set 5 in this game, I love there to be at least a couple new bananas in the Mega Grow class, because again, banana decks that have had success with them, but because it's kind of like a meh strat, and it's really, this card is only useful in one archetype where you're running banana synergy. It's not even a very good one. I'm going to give it C, which C means, again, it's a card, it has uses, it's just not very good. Alright, Party Time. Ugh, this is such an overrated card, guys. 1-cost 2/2, that's fine, so that's decent stats for a 1, and it needs to have a little something extra. This ability of when a plant does a bonus attack, draw a card, is so hard to pull off, and the main reason is because bonus attacks happen late in games. That's the main time you want to do bonus attacks. People who go and use their time to shine power with Grass Knuckles, by the way, really, really early in games. I see so many people misuse time to shine of doing an early bonus attack. Using this early in order to draw a card with Party Time is a horrible idea. This card does 4, 5, 6 damage in the late game. You definitely want to save it for the win or for removing making a really, really important trade. Definitely something that does more than 2 attack. It's just so hard to pull off bonus attacks because, again, let's say you're doing Party Time with Coffee Grounds on 2. That is maybe doing 1 bonus attack. Usually the Coffee Grounds will just get removed. Usually the Party Time will get removed before it can do it. So that's going to be the thing about drawing cards in the early game. Let's say you try to combine. I'm just going through the options, and I have tried, let's say, combining this with Bananosaurus Rex. So let's think what has to happen in order for Party Time, again, to even draw 1 card. You need your Party Time to be played on turn 3 to survive turn 3. Then you play your Bananosaurus Rex on turn 4, and the Bananosaurus Rex and the Party Time survive turn 4. And then the bananas, all those things have to happen in order to even draw 1 card with a Party Time, which again then will buff up the Bananosaurus Rex. And that is so unlikely on the highest level of the game that you have a little tiny 2/2 remaining on the field from 3 through turn 4, and the Bananosaurus Rex also survives. Again, if Bananosaurus Rex is it's extremely unlikely. This card actually only survives usually if they play a zombie on the field, and usually that zombie will be able to count to the Party Time no problem. And that's just to draw 1 card off of the Party Time. To draw 2, it's almost, again, sometimes you'll see Party Time draw a lot of cards, but this is really not. Also, drawing cards in the late game, the time you're doing bonus decks is the late game. Drawing cards at that point is typically not the right time. You want to be drawing your cards early, like on turns 1, 2, 3. Once you're into turns 4 and 5, let's say you'll play the Party Time after the Bananosaurus Rex on turn 5, it's just too late. You don't want to be spending your resources on card draw. You want to be spending your resources on doing damage to your opponent's face. It's the same really thing, just to give one more example of the best way of doing bonus attacks on the plant side, which is plant food. The plant food, you're trying to win the game with plant food. The fact that you'll spend 1 extra sun that turn on a 2/2, which isn't going to help you that much, in order to maybe draw 1 card, it's usually not worth it. I really think Party Time is super, super overrated. I'm putting it in D tier. Moving on to, again, Repeat Moss. Sorry, just to go back to Party Time for a second, because people are going to say, oh, but what about Fry? What about Repeat? Again, Repeat Moss. Repeat Moss, if you're doing this, let's say Captain Combustible, which is the main, I'm going to talk about Repeat Moss later, which is the main time. Having Repeat Moss, you're using this as a finisher. Let's say you use this on turn 5 with Captain Combustible Super, which is probably the best Repeat Moss combo. if you're going to have a party time on the field, now you've just delayed that combo an entire turn because now it's turn 6. What does drawing cards help you? What are you trying to draw once you have the repeat moss combo? A way to do it the next turn. Usually the repeat moss combo, you got to get your damage done, and then they're going to go after the repeat moss. It's not going to either stick a gravestone in front of it or hard remove it, and it's not going to be able to get another turn. I'll explain this more on repeat moss, but it is, again, it's unreliable with repeat moss, and it's also way too slow because in order to make a repeat moss party time combo, that's happening on turns 5, 6, and that's not the time in the game you're trying to draw cards. That's the time in the game you're trying to win. Moving on to Peapod. Now, this is a card I felt like in set 1 maybe was a lot better when there were fewer 1-drop options. I feel like I was also able to play Peas a lot easier back then. This card really just doesn't have enough stats to really hold its ground. The fact it's a 1-1 on turn 1 means it just dies to everything. And even if it survives that turn 1 and makes it to turn 2, this thing still only has 2 health. And it's just going to probably be removed before it's even able to get to turn 3. Usually on turn 2, at least by then, the opponent will recognize this as a threat and be able to remove it. Bungee Plumber, Rolling Stone, Extinction Event. This seems like it's only good when you stick it behind Torch, but just on the highest level of the game, I really never find Peapod ever being better than Clickbee, or just a lot of the other 1-drops in other classes. You really just don't find Peapod. Also, the fact that it only does 1 damage on turn 1, it charges your opponent's block meter without doing enough damage. You don't want to be pinging your opponent for 1. If this gets removed on 2, then this actually was just a liability, because it pinged your opponent for 1 damage, charged their block meter, and then died to a Rolling Stone or a Bungee Plumber, or just really any control card will be able to take out the Peapod. And the reason that I'm going to put this in D tier, again, I really don't think this is a very, again, it's useful. I think for budget players this is fine since the opponents aren't going to be that efficient with their removal. Maybe this will stay on. You try to buff this up maybe with like Podfather, but I'm going to explain when we get to Podfather. This is a really, really bad card. So, alright, we're going to move on to Pea Shooter. And we're going to move right on to Sweet Potato. Sweet Potato is not it's not worth it for what it does. Again, this can protect the guys, can move zombies to this lane, so sometimes you can stick things into like a spikeweed sector. It's just there's always better options. Instead of running Sweet Potato, run Bonk Choy. Run something that will actually remove that zombie instead of just relocate it to a different lane. Every once in a while, again, Sweet Potato can open up, you have a good plant on the field, and they stick a zombie in front of it, which, by the way, is on the highest level of the game, no good zombie players are going to be reliably trying to control plants by sticking zombies in front of them the next turn, because zombies, again, have the first say. They're going to be played only to counter plants from the last turn. So if you're thinking about protecting a plant with this, there's just so many better options in the game. It doesn't do any damage. Like, I feel like if this at least would add, I mean, just compare this to, like, for example, to Garlic, which isn't necessarily even a great card, but this at least adds a little attack, it has 2 extra health, so it survives a lot more. It protects plants really just as well as Sweet Potato does. Sweet Potato is a bad card. I'm not going to say it's completely useless, but yeah, it is. It's going enough. Sorry, Sweet Potato. Alright. Torchwood. So, again, the P synergy, the good P synergy in this game is Gatling P. And using this to do a 5 damage when played, it's kind of like a mini trickster. The bad P synergies are Torchwood and the Podfather. Now, I'm not going to say this is completely useless. If you really do want to make some kind of Podfather deck, this is fine. There are good Ps in this game. Like, even sticking this in front of Black Eye P protects its health and adds 2 damage. There are very good Ps in this game. I'm not going to say this is completely useless. I think for budget players, Torchwood's a pretty good card. On the highest level of the game, it never really seems to be worth it to run Torchwood in a deck. It's better to, I don't know. It doesn't have enough health. It dies a little too easily. And again, it only has the real advantage of being a 0-3, only when there's exactly a P behind it. And that really limits even further the amount of decks this will be useful in. Because it's sort of useful for budget players, I'm going to put it in the same as Peapod. It's really just as useful as Peapod, so I'm going to put it in D tier. Here's Umbrella Leaf. This card is so overrated. This is not actually a good idea in almost any deck. I've experimented with Umbrella Leaf. I'll tell you why. The Umbrella Leaf itself dies too easily. I feel like this card would be viable. If it was self-untrickable, it would be obviously extremely viable. But even if it had like 2 or 3 health, maybe if this had 3 health, this would really be a good card. Now, why are you running Umbrella Leaf in a deck? Because you have big plants, things with a big investment that you don't want to get hard removed. This dies to every, again, the 1 health makes it die to Nibble, Rolling Stone, Bungee Plumber, Extinction. If it doesn't, like, environments, you can have even just like a black hole will remove Umbrella Leaf. It's just too flimsy. I know you can stick this for 1 and like protect a plant, but there's just better options. I mean, just comparing this to Little Buddy. Little Buddy is free and also heals you, or Puff Shroom at least add, and these also cost 0, and these at least add attack. Again, I've tried Umbrella Leaf. It's not a reliable way. If you really have big, flimsy plants that you're really relying on in order to win, that's usually not a good strategy anyway, because then if you don't get Umbrella Leaf, they're exposed and they're just going to get rocket scienced or exploding fruitcake. I think the fact that the big removal on the zombie side really in this game, because it's so low, because it's so cheap, I think makes Umbrella Leaf a lot worse. If the big removal was more expensive, and like it should be, and, you know, to hard remove a card costs 5, 6, or 7. Umbrella Leaf, the fact they'll have to invest a card into Umbrella Leaf and then also a huge amount in order to remove the minion it's protecting, I think Umbrella Leaf would actually be better, because it would sort of like cut off. There would be a lot of turns, like on turn 5, you know, you wouldn't be able to remove the card because you're not going to have enough brains to deal with both the Umbrella Leaf and the other card. Again, I'm not going to say this is completely useless. I've never found a real deck where I'm like so happy I had Umbrella Leaf. Every once in a while you have like 2 Umbrella Leafs and it protects you from Weed Spray, but that's only when you have 2. This card really should be self-untrickable, or at least have 3 health. It's probably more useful than the cards we have in D, so I'm gonna put it in C. You can use this with Briar Rose. That is a flower. Leafy, you can, I don't know, the Leafy synergy is not very good. I'll get to that a little bit later. Alright, here's a gem. Black Eyed Pea has been one of the best cards in the game. Just like sort of staple, amazing, it's never bad to be in a deck cards ever since really the game came out. The 2 cost 2/3 is great stats, and the fact it grows every single time the zombies play a trick makes both this card very difficult to remove. It's just such a strong punish to one of the strongest things that the zombies can do, which is last say tricks. Again, the only weakness Black Eyed Pea really has is Rolling Stone. But, you know, Bungee Plumber, most of the things they're doing on turn 2, Beam Me Up, Extinction Event, this really is such a hard counter to decks that rely on a lot of tricks, to, you know, guys like Immorticia and Professor Brainstorm. I know there's a few Lightning Bolt powers are probably the best counter to Black Eyed Pea, like Z-Max or Electric Boogaloo's, you know, 3 damage lightning powers. That's the reason, one of the reasons they're so good is because they can just zap a Black Eyed Pea off the field. So overall, it's a very difficult card to deal with. It's never bad to have these in a deck, and that's what I'm really emphasizing. This doesn't need to be in a P deck. It doesn't need to be in a Bean deck, even though it is useful in those 2. I did make an aggro deck with Black Eyed Pea lately, which punishes your opponent from removing your minions off the field because of Black Eyed Pea, and had Gatling Pea in that deck, had a lot of success with that. I'm just going to stick this solid A card. There's just never a problem having. It's not, again, this isn't the take over the world card in this game, but it's just always a solid option to have in your decks. All right. Cabbage Pult. This is not a good card. This is not a good card. The main reason, there's 2 problems with Cabbage Pult, and this is one of my favorite plants from the original Plants vs. Zombies. Too bad they made it a freaking useless bowl of coleslaw in this game. First of all, it has to be played on heights in order to get its buff. Otherwise, the 2 costs 1/3, which is garbage. But even when it's played on heights, a 2/4 plant is not, if it's limited to 1 lane, it's not very good, because I'll tell you why. A 2 costs 3/3, which if you think about it is the same amount of stats, and that was the old Fireweed when it was played on heights, was a 2-cost 3/3. That was amazing. A 2-cost 2/4 is so much worse than a 3/3. First of all, it's doing 2 damage instead of 3 damage. The 3 damage is so much stronger on turn 2, let's say in terms of an aggro, doing enough damage to your opponent's face. 2 damage is just pretty meh for a 2-cost card. Also, when this is up against a 2/3, which the just sort of normal standard 2-drop, let's say zombie, is a 2/3. This will trade evenly with it. A 3/3 though, like Fireweed, like the old Fireweed, would trade up. Against a 2/3, it would still survive on the field as a 3/1. Especially with the whole advantage of playing sort of just high stat, just stat heavy plans, is the fact that they can just be played in front of a zombie and trade well with them. And this, first of all, can't be played anywhere except for heights, so it's limited in that. And second of all, again, if it's against a 2/3, which is sort of the standard, it's not going to trade well at all. It's going to even trade. And that's why I'm putting Cabbage Pult in F. There's really no business in this being in really any deck on any level of the game. It's too bad, because it has so much stats. Pumping this up with another card and growing it on turn 3, it's also not a good option. I'm going to explain that when I get into Fertilizing Groshroom, which I think there's a big misunderstanding about. Investing many cards into one card is usually not a good idea, because then it just gets harder moved. Alright, Coffee Grounds. Coffee Grounds is not a good environment. So I'm being really, really harsh on the Megaro class. This is not a good environment, and I'll tell you why. The main reason is because zombies have last say when it comes to environments. If they pass turn 2, you just don't have the option of Coffee Grounds, because every zombie basically is going to have a 1 or 2 cost environment that you will get no value out of this Coffee Grounds. Coffee Grounds is not it's not a reactive environment, it's proactive. The reason why Spikeweed Sector is so good is because you play that reacting to the zombies. If they play a 2-drop on the ground, you counter with Spikeweed, and then the Spikeweed doesn't get covered that turn on turn 2. Or on turn 3 if they played a 3-drop. Coffee Grounds does not play reactively. You have to play this only where you have a minion in order to make it do extra attacks. And that's what, again, that makes that, since it's proactive instead of reactive, it makes the zombies able to react to you and cover this Coffee Grounds. I really feel like this environment would be good as a zombie environment. A 2-cost 1 that has last say, and it makes guys in there do double strike. Like something, maybe that would even be a good for a 3-cost environment. Probably would be good at 3. Like it's just a fundamental flaw in the fact that zombies have the last say for Coffee Grounds. I've tried this in decks. It's really, really, again, I'm not going to say it's completely useless. I'll put it in C tier. It's probably about the same as the C tier cards that we have here. But anyway. All right. Doubled Mint. This is guys, this might be the most overrated card in the entire game. Before I even played Doubled Mint, I thought this was going to be amazing. It's all such a cheap legendary. This can grow to, the next turn will be a 2/4, then it can grow and grow and grow until your opponent is forced to use a big removal card on it. That is not the case. When you play this on turn 2, this always gets removed. Doesn't matter if they played Sumo, Bungee Plumber, Rolling... I know if they have Sumo, you can stick this right in front. Good luck with that. Rolling Stone, Bungee Plumber, again, just every 2 or 1 cost card. Even Nibble basically counters this, because then it just turns into a 1/2 the next turn, and a 0/2 the next turn. And it's obviously, not a threat on the field at all. I do feel like this could be good as a 1/3. I really think that would make this into a viable strategy. It would still be weak to Rolling Stone, still be weak the next turn to even the next turn to Rolling Stone, but at least it doesn't die to Bungee Plumber and beam me up. I really think as a 1/3 this would be viable. Again, and if you're going to, even if this does miraculously survive turn 2, the next turn is just a 2/4, which is just so easy still. It still dies to that Rolling Stone, to the Flick, to the Weed Spray. If you try to then invest more cards in Double Mint, some people think it's a good idea to then start growing it using fertilizer and whatnot. Then it just gets harder moved. It'll just get rocketed, and they're going to remove your 2-cost card plus your 3-cost card with one of their 3-cost cards, or Exploding Fruitcake, or whatnot. I've tried Double Mint so many times, has never really worked out for me. I'm sorry, Double Mint. I think this is the first legendary I'm putting in F tier because I really do not think this is a good card at all. I really think it's gotta be a 1-3 in order to even begin to be viable in any deck. Keep it going. I'm putting it in F tier, even though I could put it in D. I'm putting it in F tier because to make a point. It's so overrated. It's really, really bad. Here's Fire Pea Shooter. This is better than a lot better than Double Mint. Are you kidding me? This is actually a very solid card. Now, back in set 1, this was a lot better. Since set 1, there's been a lot of cards that sort of outclass Fire Pea Shooter like a lot. Like Triceratops, if you're Grass Knuckles, or you have, if you're, it really depends on the hero. If you're Chompzilla, you'll actually have a lot of better options than Fire Pea. Like Apple Saucer is basically the exact same thing as Fire Pea, but better. It's just not a P. Apple Saucer has the ability to have Strike Through. Exactly same stats, 2 cost 3/2. In the Kabloom class, you have Fireweed, which is always a better option than Fire Bee. So back in set 1, this was actually a very solid card. Having a 2 cost 3/2 on turn 2, that's good stats. That's good aggro. 3 damage on turn 2, especially if they've already committed a zombie. Again, this will still die to Bungee Plumber, but it's immune to Rolling Stone. Weed Spray don't affect this whatsoever. And this can also be used to control. Again, doing 3 damage on turn 2, think about it as basically a light Berry Blast that can also be used against the Gravestone. That, you know, again, it's weaker because it doesn't activate the 3 damage immediately like Berry Blast, but it's really just overall a solid card. Again, it is a P, so it has that going for it. It's just so outclassed, especially in its class, actually, which came out, is Split P, which is almost always going to be better. This does 4 damage, and also has a very useful ability. I'll be getting to Split P in just a second. So, you know, for budget players, do not have any problem running Fire. I almost wish I would see more budget players running Fire Pea Shooter in their deck. Because it's severely, severely outclassed nowadays in the meta, though, I'm sadly going to have to put this card in D. But I really think this card is better, a lot better than the other cards we have in D. Because, again, 2 cost 3/2 is actually excellent stats. All right. Here we go. Lily of the Valley. Oh, man. This was like my favorite card back in the day. This was an event card. You could carry decks with this. This used to have 3 health. And that version was perfect. I don't think it was overpowered at 3. I think it was a build around strategy. You Lily, 2 cost 1/2, as I explained with Double Mint, it just always dies. Not just a Rolling Stone, to Bungee Plumber, to beam me up. There's just no way of getting this to stick around the field on turn 2. Making this have 2 health now has just ruined the card. I would have put this in S when this had 3 health. You used to be able to play Lily, it would almost always survive, and then you have extra stats on turn 3. You could actually, Groshroom used to be a much better card back in the day because you could Lily on 2, Groshroom on 3 to keep your Lily alive. Now your Lily's a 3/4. It's a 3/5 actually. It's a force to be reckoned with in itself. It's just become so sad. If you're trying to maybe do this, like skip turn 2, you go on turn 3, you play Lily with like Shroom for 2 again, so you can get 2 3/3s on heights. It's still so circumstantial. You need to have a 1-drop in your hand and also be doing this on turn 3 in order for it to be good. It's just so sad that they nerfed this card. I really thought this was balanced at 1/3. They could have even made it a 0/3. It would be better. It really would be better than making it to a 1/2. 2 cost 1/2 plants are useless, and I'm sorry, Lily. I'm putting you in D tier. It's probably still better than Double Mint because you actually at least have a viable turn 3 combo with it, but it's just making me sad remembering the good old Lily days. I really feel that the Mega Grow class, because of the Lily nerf, has overall become worse. Because the whole thing of the Mega Grow was playing tempo, is where you're getting these ridiculous amount of stats on the field, and Lily was such on the highest level of the game. Lily has really, since it came out, always been a really, really important part of tempo. Now, tempo with Mega Grow is just like, it's so meh. And it's because of the Lily nerf. This was a really, really bad idea. Alright. Let's go. P-Patch. Not a very good card. I'll tell you why. 2 cost 2/2 by itself, bad. Second of all, To invest many cards, I guess I'll do this now, and this will apply to fertilizer. Typically, investing many cards into one card on the highest level of the game is not a good idea because there's such efficient, hard removal on the zombie side, like rocket science. You know, if you like exploding fruitcake, if you play this on 2 and somehow, by some miracle, again, this dies to everything on turn 2, so by some miracle it survives, and you play your Muscle Sprout, or you play a Captain Cucumber, or something like this onto it on turn 3, there's still so many. I guess Captain Cucumber doesn't die to rocket science, but it still would die to exploding fruitcake. But you really just play anything with 2 or more attack onto this, and you're trying to really, you know, use that fusion ability. The rocket science, exploding fruitcakes, alley news, if it's happening on heights or in an environment, just completely ruin, and you'll be able to use a 2 or 3 cost card to remove 5 worth of plants on the plant, 5 worth of sun on the plant side, and that's P-Patch really just falls short. There's a couple of notable combos with P-Patch, like it's okay with Gatling P because that makes it do a 7 bonus attack, but again, it's very difficult for the P-Patch on turn 4. You're playing this on turn 4 to survive on the field on turn 4. Like, there's so many 1-cost cards that just deal with it. So that's unlikely. Other combo you can do, I mean, you're trying to like stick it onto a Repeat Moss and then do a Repeat Moss combo with Captain Combustible. It's probably better to not just run better cards on turn 2 than P-Patch. You can use it together. It's a leafy card, so you can use it with Savage Spinach. But again, giving your Savage Spinach, having this cover a 2-cost card and having this have a lot of extra stats, it's probably better to have Savage Spinach cover a 1-cost card. And by the way, again, Savage Spinach is not a very good card. I'll get to that later. Sad P-Patch. It's not very good.
We need a leap.
And there's so many better options. And thank you so much, Koi Bentos. Welcome to the Fry Molly. I'm gonna put this in D. I don't think it's really worth running very often at all. Okay, Split P. This is a great card. First of all, the amount of damage this does on turn 2 is ridiculous. So again, this is very, very flimsy. It doesn't die to Rolling Stone though. So again, there's at least a few things it has a resistance to, and it trades evenly. Let's say with Beam Me Up, as opposed to Doubled Mins and Lily of the Valley, the Beam Me Up will stay on the field. At least this will make an even trade. So if your opponent commits a zombie, this is a great option on turn 2. Again, the 1 health does make it flimsy, but it's only a 2-cost card. So it's like a high risk, high reward, and I think the reward really makes up for the risk. This ability is actually very good. I don't know if this was intended before combat here, doing 1 damage to the plant hero. If that was intended on being a penalty for being so good as a 4/1. But it actually is an advantage because, as I explained before, pinging your own block meters for 1 damage is always a good thing. It'll just give you superpowers. It gives you so much more tempo, and it'll give you that time to shine, or if it's Captain Combustible, that blazing bark that you need in order to really be played for free, or at least very cheaply, later in the game. Because this is a great aggro card, you can also, in a pinch, use this as control, because again, 2 cost, doing 4 damage is ridiculous. Giving this a really solid A tier. This is really, really good in aggro. Not very good in tempo or control. I wouldn't rely on this for control because it only has 1 health, so it's easy to counter. But very, very, very solid card. This is also particularly good in any card, again, that you do need superpowers. So let's say a Captain Combustible Repeat Moss deck. Their Repeat Moss is mostly useful with Captain Combustible's superpowers. It's just a great way of accumulating those in your hand because it's pinging your block meter. The pinging your block meter can also prevent a lot of damage later. You're taking 1, and then every once in a while Split P kills you. But that's especially when it's played early in the game. It'll usually save you more health than it will actually damage you. I can almost put this in S tier. I'm going to put it in A. Here's Sweet Pea. Sweet Pea is a good card. This is solid because, again, 2 cost 2, 3. And, again, this is so much better than Sweet Potato. Sweet Potato doesn't actually do any damage to things. This does. This also is a very good answer to cards like Toxic Waste Imp. Now, Toxic Waste Imp has not become a huge problem lately in the meta. I don't see a lot of people running Toxic Waste Imp. Maybe because of Banana Bomb. Maybe just, I don't know. Maybe imps are just meta right now. There was a time that Toxic Waste Imp, you needed an answer to this in your deck, and Split P was like a really decent option. The fact that, you know, it answers the toxic wasting, but also can do a lot of other things. Even just being a 2/3 on the field is fine. Like, just as a stat card, it's not that easy to remove. Makes this a viable option. I am going to stick this in. This really has replaced Hot Date. Like, if you just compare this to the Guardian card, with Grass Knuckles, of course, it's only applicable. If you just compare it to Hot Date, like, this does 3 damage, that does 2, but again, this doesn't do anything if it's moved to a different lane, or if this is played right on the field, as opposed to the Split P at least does something. Can be used to proc a block, or not the Sweet P, I mean. So because this is just a decent card, I'm putting it in B. Alright, here is Vegetation Mutation. This is a card I've struggled for a very long time to find a use. It happens to be just yesterday, the day before I'm recording this. I did do an aggro Grass Knuckles deck. I didn't run any 3-drops. I just ran a bunch of 1s and 2s. And then Vegetation Mutation was our 3. And the idea is to try to make a combo play on turn 3 where you play like a 1-drop on Heights and Vegetation Mutation if there's an environment on the ground. This has a lot of potential because if you have 2 environments on the ground and plants in those environments and a plant on Heights, this can be a 2-cost 6/6. Even in just a 1 plant, though, it's still a 2-cost 2/2 buffing a plant, which is okay. I don't think this is very good for Repeat Moss. Again, I'll explain with Repeat Moss later. It's mostly with superpowers you want to use that. It tends to be a little too expensive because your Repeat Moss combo on turn 6 and it still only does 4 damage if this is combined with Repeat Moss. Again, I don't think this is useful in most decks. It is too circumstantial to run. Just investing for 2 cost, your guy has to be on Heights and then only giving it 2/2. The fact that you have plants in environments and on Heights makes this a worse card. Again, I'm not going to say it's useless. I have had a little success with this in a very limited amount of decks, particularly like Grass Knuckles, Bullseye decks. But most decks, this is really not a good option. I'm going to, because it's not completely useless, but it's not great either, I'm going to put it in C tier. But again, C tier means it has a viable use on the highest level of the game, just not very many. You're not going to really see this being played in a lot. It's not a good idea in a lot of decks. All right. Here's Captain Cucumber. Oh boy. This is a card when it came out, I thought this was just some cheesy RNG, card. This is actually a very highly competitive card. It's, first of all, just the fact that it gives you late game, that you can play earlier, that you almost look at this as a ramp card. Like the fact if this gives you a 5-cost legendary, which again, the legendaries are some of the better cards, especially the expensive ones in this game. You're going to then be able to play, that 5-cost card on turn 4, or if it's an 8-cost card, which are incredibly strong in this game, you'll be able to play that on 7 a turn earlier, because again, everything it conjures, this will be able to, sorry about that. Thank you so much, The Real Pickle Rick. Perfect timing. Perfect timing. The Real was so saving that for Captain Cucumber. Oh my gosh. Again, this will make you able to play expensive cards for cheaper, so having your Kernel Corn on turn 7 whenever this conjures is very good. Again, there's a couple bad legendaries. If it gives you doubled mints, it's usually not good, especially after turn 3. If you have several Captain Cucumbers on the field, then the cards will cost 2 less, which is ridiculous. This also, again, does synergize with a whole bunch of other things. Anytime you conjure something, it's less, so there's a little synergy there. The main synergy that Captain Cucumber has is actually with dinosaurs. The fact that this grows, particularly with Grass Knuckles, if you play your Triceratops, let's say on turn 2, and then your Captain Cucumber, thank you so much, Cartonator, for welcome to the family, and you play your Triceratops, let's say on turn 2, and your Captain Cucumber on turn 3, that will just make your Triceratops grow more and more. What the heck is Triceratops? Your Bananosaurus Rex, which I'll get to. Again, all these dinosaurs will activate all of these abilities. You usually want to play Captain Cucumber on Heights, so there's just a few things on the ground, like Acid Rain and Black Hole. There's a few ways that, let's say, Total Eclipse. I might have said, I meant Total Eclipse before instead of Black Hole. Sorry about that. I do that sometimes. Captain Cucumber usually want to play on Heights. You don't want this you'd rather this, even Alien News, you don't want this to be on the field and be a 0/2. You want this to just die. You'd rather that lane be open instead of having it useless. So you usually want to play this on Heights. This is never bad in a deck. You can just stick this in anything, and I'm going to put Captain Cucumber in S tier. I really think that an actual, first of all, very fun, so it's getting some credit for the real fun of this. And if someone says, you know, hey, I have some sparks, I'm gonna craft Captain Cucumber, I can never argue with that because it makes the game very interesting. And it has a lot of synergy, and it really is, in terms of its conjures, a pretty competitive card. Really never a problem to be putting in any deck. I'll put that in S tier. Alright, here is Cosmic P. This is such trash. Guys, this is so bad. 3 cost 1/1? What were they thinking with this? What is this? 3 cost 1/1. Oh, look, double strikes. Instead of pinging your opponent's block meter and charging it once, now it charges it twice. 2 for the price of 2 pieces of trash garbage for the price of 1. What is this supposed to do? You're supposed to stick this. You're supposed to stick this like behind Torchwood. Great, Torchwood's not even a good card. Even then, it still dies to just every removal card in the game. Guys, playing this together with Podfather, which is not a good card. It's 3 cost. It's so, why not just play a bunch of cheaper Ps? Oh great, so it conjures you a P and that P gets double strike. What is that P gonna be? Oh, look at all these Ps that are just really bad to have double strike. You have getting regular P, you're getting, I don't know what. This is not a, guys, how does this card cost 3? There's a couple of good cosmic cards in this game, and this is definitely not one of, you know what, this is going in trash tier. Oh my gosh, this is, what were they thinking with this costing 3? Maybe if this cost, like, it was a 2/2, it would be a little better version of Repeater, which is, by the way, a really bad card. I'll get to that in a second. This is such trash, guys. This is such cringe. I'm cringing just thinking about what was going through the person's mind who invented Cosmic P. They're like, oh, that'll be a good idea. Let's give it a 3 cost 1/1. Wow. Wow. Moving right along, Fertilize. The reason this is not a good card, as I've explained already a couple times in this Mega Rogue class, is because investing 5 Sun into 1 card, everything just dies to Rocket Science and to Exploding Fruitcake. Again, maybe if the removal in this game was more expensive, which it should be, and all your Rocket Sciences and your Exploding Fruitcakes were way more expensive, Fertilize probably then would be a good card, because it makes a card that's in trouble, it's having a bad trade, it really adds a lot of stats. If you want to...
Hold up, look at Captain Cucumber's synergy.
Captain Cucumber's synergy? What? Oh, Captain Cucumber with Cosmic P. Exactly. I think if big removal was nerfed, Fertilize would actually be a viable card. Since big removal is so cheap, Fertilize, it just wastes 3 Sun and an entire card, and then you just get hard removed. That's the problem. I'm playing Legends of Runeterra nowadays, and you know how much it costs to hard remove a minion in Legends of Runeterra? It costs like 5, 6, and 7. Like Locust Swarm costs 7 in that game. I really think that's where the big removal in a card game really should be, in order to make strategies where you're able to use cards like Fertilizer to actually buff up smaller minions and make them bigger. Nowadays, it's just completely useless. And guys, do not tell me to use Fertilize with Repeat Moss. Guys, that is a turn 7 combo that does 5 damage and creates a 5/6. That is not good on turn 7. Repeat Moss is not good with Fertilize. It does 5. You spend 2 cards and 7 Sun to do 5 damage. It's so bad. Guys, turn 7's way too late, and then usually Repeat Moss, before it can do anything else that turn, will get hard removed by Rocket Science. Exactly the same problem. So they've basically removed 7 worth of Sun using 3, or 2, because they can Exploding Fruitcake it, and then they're able to use all that remaining brains in order to ruin your face. And for that reason, I'm not going to say it's completely useless. I'll put it in D tier. Every once in a while, Fertilize is good. Maybe it's not. I almost want to put this in F. I'll put it in D. It's a pretty trash card. Flourish is way too expensive at 3. This card should cost 2. I don't know why they made this cost 3. I wish there was good card draw on the plant side to make combo decks. This is my favorite kind of deck, by the way. It's like Miracle decks, where you draw a bunch of cards and you come in with a really big combo. 3 is just too expensive. Just for a point of reference, by the way, I'm going to do this in the superpower tier list. Regular superpowers, like the ultimates, these are like 3 cost cards. I know Devour is probably not a good example of that, but these are supposed to be like the equivalent of like a 3 cost card, like Tater Toss, for example. creates a 3-cost minion. They're supposed to be, and the regular superpowers though are supposed to cost 2. So if you would have a card, let's say, that removes 1/1 from all the ground lanes, that would be like basically a 2-cost card, not a very good one. Geyser and Holoflora, it should be a 2-cost card. So again, this is one of the better superpowers. So maybe it's maybe like a 2.5 cost, but Flourish again at 3 is just way too expensive. It's really not a good idea. Just compare this to like playing Captain Cucumber on the field when you have your Triceratops. This will grow your Triceratops by 2, the Flourish, but then it just dies to hard removal. Like it's way too slow. I used to think Mayflower and Flourish, these cards were viable. That was when I was playing on admittedly very low level of the game. This is basically not a card that's worth running in any deck, to be honest. It's so sad. I'm not say it's completely useless, but I'm putting it in D with everything else in this freaking class. The Megaro class really needs a lot of these cards need a lot of buffs. Grape Power. Same problem. You don't want to invest, the same as Fertilize. You don't want to invest 3 Sun into a single plant just to double its attack. If you have a big Repeat Moss on the field, this can do 20 damage in 1 turn, but that doesn't happen. It's not, your Repeat Moss, if you're playing against any good player, they're going to remove your Repeat Moss if that lasts on the field from turn to turn. I mean, on turn 10, I guess you could grow your Repeat Moss and then use Great Power. Turn 10 is too late. Captain Combustible, you're winning on turns 5 and 6. Why would you run Great Power so you have a way to win on turn 10? You're usually dead by then. The fact it gives you a great responsibility, again, it's just too slow. Even playing both of these for 4, like, what are you investing 4 into that's just not going to get hard to remove that turn by a 2 or 3 cost card? It's just this problem. I think at 2, this might be viable. I have seen people successfully use Grape Responsibility, let's say with cards like Astrocado, but again, those games that the Astrocado was able to do bonus, strike through damage for 10, they weren't playing against good guys, because if on turn 6, it's really on turn 6, if they can't remove an Astrocado on turn 6, like, who are you playing against? You're playing against freaking, I don't know what. You're playing against the Brain Freeze Pirates, maybe, aren't able to deal with this, because they were on Pogo. And for that reason, I'm really just going to stick it with everything else over here and just D tier. Again, every once in a while it's good. I'm not going to make it completely useless, but it's just such a flawed card. Like, as a zombie trick, these would be good. Maybe. No, Vitamin Z is not a very good card either. Never mind, I take it back. It wouldn't be good as a zombie. Unredeemable. I think making these a lot cheaper, making them cost 2, like even Fertilize it 2, I think would actually be pretty good. Because then it can't be removed by Rocket Science that turn. You can play it on turn 2. But anyway. Grow Shroom. Okay, same problem. This is a little better because at least it doesn't invest the entire card into a guy. But again, growing right now in the state of the game because of Fruitcake, because of Rocket, spending 3 Sun, the primary use of Grow Shroom is to invest a lot of resources into a different minion. That minion usually just gets harder removed, and it has the exact same problem as Fertilize. Now, the fact it's a 2/1, this can sort of like do a little damage. It can sort of counter a weaker minion at the same time, so it does make it better than Fertilize and cards like that. Back when Lily of the Valley was actually a thing, this was actually a great card, because then it would make the Lily of the Valley into a 3/5. Which is not very easily removed. 3/5, like, it's just exploding Fruitcake. Like, Rocket doesn't even kill it. The Grow Shroom on Heights would then be a 4/3. This was really good. Nowadays, again, Tempo, this is a Tempo card in the Mega Grow, and that has just been nerfed to the Ice Age. I'm putting C because it really is significantly better than cards like Lily and Fertilize, but it's on the highest level of the game, again, because of how efficient big removal is in this game. It's really not worth it. Here's Moonbeam. This card has such good stats. It trades really well with a lot of zombies. Again, it trades well. It doesn't trade well with 3/3s. It trades evenly. But even then, to control 3/3s and shuffle a bunch of Magic Beanstalks in your deck, it's fine. This card really has amazing stats. It's the equivalent of like a 3/4, 2/5. Its ability is extremely unreliable. because the Magic Beanstalks, again, if you're relying on those Magic Beanstalks coming up and it's just shuffling in every single time it does damage, you're usually not going to be able to rely on that. Every once in a while, it'll shuffle it towards the top of your deck, in which case it's good. But if it's anywhere between the middle and the bottom of your deck, you're usually never going to see those Magic Beanstalks. So most of the time, you're not actually going to see the Magic Beanstalks at all in this game. Just looking at the card, I think this should be a lot better. I've tried Moonbeam in so many decks, and I've never really gotten it to work. The other problem, and the reason why Moonbeam is not a very good card, is just how severely outclassed it is by Captain Cucumber. Like, why would you ever run Moonbeam instead of Captain Cucumber? This is so much better. This conjures you cheap, amazing plays the next turn. This, like, maybe, and also, you know, when this gets blocked, it, of course, doesn't shuffle anything into your deck. I feel like as a Smarty card, maybe because of the Beanstalk synergy with Lima Pleurodon, this really would have been better as a Smarty card. Now, this only really works with the Magic Beanstalk strategy if you're exactly Green Shadow, which, again, I've tried that deck, the Magic Beanstalk deck, where you're running Lima Pleurodon and Moonbeam and, I don't know, so Magic Beans. It's not a good idea, guys. You're usually not able to control for very long with Green Shadow. Not a very good control hero. It's not a horrible card. It has very good stats. I'm just gonna put it in C because it's just it's outclassed severely by Captain Cucumber, and usually it's just not worth running in a deck, even though it has good stats. It's a decent card. But anyway, all right. Here's Muscle Sprout. Oof. I used to really like Muscle Sprout. Again, because of Exploding Fruitcake, Muscle Sprout became a lot worse. Because even if you were able to get your Muscle Sprout going, and then it just dies to a 2-cost card, Exploding Fruitcake is problematic. It really, really is. I think going through this Mega Grow tier list is making me realize more and more how problematic Exploding Fruitcake is. I have had some success with Muscle Sprout, like OTK Muscle Sprout with, like, I think Captain Combustible, where you combine it with a lot of little mushrooms and stuff. Again, even if they remove this with Rocket Science, it's still a 3-cost card, controlling a 3-cost card, it's fine. The turn you actually play this Muscle Sprout, it's not very good, because a 3-2 dies to Bungee Plumber, Wrath, Beam Me Up counters. This is just a lot of things that if you're not combining this with exactly the right other cards, like Puffshroom and stuff like that, it actually is not very good on its own. Muscle Sprout, it's definitely not going in A tier. I'll probably put this in B or C. It probably is more useful than the C tier cards. Again, I have had success with this in a couple of decks. You gotta just be careful. If you play Muscle Sprout carefully, meaning you're never, if the zombies past turn 3, you just don't play your Muscle Sprout. If you don't have another play, yeah, your Muscle Sprout kind of just failed you there. But if they do make a play on turn 3, this will usually be safe because they, you know, unless they have exactly Bungee Plumber, usually your Muscle Sprout will be all right. I'm gonna put it in B tier. It's okay in a couple decks, but it's kind of just meh. This would probably be very low B or C. I'll put it in B. All right. Repeater, not a good card. It's a 3-cost 2-2. It has the same problem as all the 2-cost 1-2s or 2-cost 2-2s, except that it's worse because it costs 3. This is really have no business running Repeater in any deck. Sticking this behind a torch, but again, it still just dies to that Bungee Plumber. Even with Podfather, which is the next card on the list, it's just expensive. It's better to use the Podfather's ability to buff a bunch of small cards than one big one. It's just so bad. I'm putting it in F. Repeater was one of the most fun plans, again, in the original Plants vs. Zombies, and they just ruined it in this game. Like, what would fix this card? Let's say this was a 3-cost 3-3 double strike. Like, why not? Is that too strong? That would be a fine card. It would be a Bananasaurus Rex that does not grow. That would be a good card. That would be a very decent card. It wouldn't die to most of the small removal cards in the game. It would be a mid-range card. It has this ability. That would be a solid. That would be a very good card, actually. But even making into a 3-2, it definitely wouldn't be overpowered. 2-2, it just sucks. All right. 2-3. I don't know 2-3. I don't think it does enough damage. I don't think it does. I would like this to be a 3-2. 3-2 would be a usable card. It wouldn't even be that useful. Try to think which deck you would be running Repeater in if it was a 3-2. I like this as a 3-3, and then it would actually be a very solid card. All right. Next, we have the Podfather. Again, this is a 3-cost 2/2, guys. People get so psyched on the building. They say, oh, when you play a P, so this is really a 3-cost. If you play with 1 P, it's a 3-cost 4/4. If you play with 2 Ps, every single time you play a P, this just gains more and more stats. What turn are you playing Podfather? You can't play it on turn 3 because it's dead. I mean, unless they committed their team mascot on 3. Your Podfather, if you're running Podfather in a deck, which means you have to be running a lot of Ps, you have to be building around it in order for this to be good. You're trying to play. What are you doing on turn 3? You're passing, and then you're trying to save this for turn. Like, even playing this on turn 4 with 1 other P is still not worth it. You've just spent 4 Sun investing. Let's say you play this with, I don't know, what's a good P? Let's say Click P. So you've spent 4 Sun on 6/6 worth of stats, which is not worth it. So you have to save this now to turn 5 and play with 2 Ps. First of all, you have to have 2 Ps in your hand. You have to have passed all those early turns and not played your Ps early and just control them somehow. It's just so circumstantial for Podfather ever to be good. I really think this is a piece of trash garbage. I've tried this in so many decks. I've had a little bit of success, not very much. Again, there is, every once in a while, Podfather will take over games. If they're unable to remove it, if you play this very, very precisely, you can get some value. I'm not going to quite put this in F, but I'm going to put it in D. I think I just pushed a tier off the edge here, so we're going to have to shrinky time. But, yeah, I'm putting it in D tier. It's really not for the reasons I explained. It's too easily controlled. And really just not worth. You have to build a deck around it, and it's not really worth it. All right, this is what our tier list looks like now, guys. Moving right along. Here we go. Stonks. Typical Beanstalk. 3-cost 3/3 is fine stats. It has this ability when played next to a leafy plant. First of all, it should also be if there's a leafy plant in this lane, because there's plenty of leafy plants that have like team up, like Umbrella Leaf. So I just feel like that's a quality of life, improvement that this would have. Leafy, like, when are you going to run this in a deck? Leafy decks are not good. I'm going to get in. The 2 cards that have Leafy synergy are Typical Beanstalk and Savage Spinach, and none of these are amazing. Savage Spinach makes you have to run a bunch of Leafy cards, which are usually not very good, and it limits your whole deck structure. I'll get to this in a second with Savage Spinach. I don't think Typical Beanstalk, there's better 3/3s to be running, even compared to like Moonbeam, that at least controls your opponent's gravestones. Compare this just to Captain Cucumber in its class. It's usually not a good idea to run Typical Beanstalk. I'm not going to say it's horrible. I don't have Typical Beanstalk on my... Oh, here it is. I don't know why it's at 5. Oh, this used to cost 5. It used to be a 5-cost 4/4. It is better as a 3/3. I'm just going to put this in C. It's kind of like the same as Moonbeam. It's outclassed by basically all the good 3-drops in this game. It's not bad. I'm not going to say it's horrible. And it's, again, by its Leafy synergy. That's the only value of this, is being more than a 3-cost 3/3. It's just very limited in that way. All right. Here is Banana Split. Not a good card. It's not. 4-cost 4/4 is bad. Now, it has this little ability that can create 2 half bananas, but that's very circumstantial because you have to have this die exactly in the right time. If you play this, by the way, on turn 4, like, you can use this as a control card. Those half bananas, you have to have the 2 lanes be open, by the way, on the right and left of it. If half bananas were team-ups, then maybe this would be more valuable because then you would always be making the half bananas when it died. I feel like making half banana a team up would would help Banana Split actually be viable and the whole banana synergy. Like, what's your idea? You want to play Banana Split, control your opponent, get your half banana. Like, how are you winning the game? I feel like this card has a nice amount of stats if it would fit into a deck archetype. Like, are those 2/2 half bananas really going to help you win the game? We're coming into turn 5 and you got a couple half bananas on the field. Like, wow, we're gonna win now. We got half banana. Like, otherwise, that's the only advantage of this being more than a... Like, just compare this to cards like Bananasaurus Rex, which we're gonna get to in a second. This is a card that can take over games. This does a lot of damage to your opponent's face. This half banana does not. You have to be looking on turn 4 to set up the kill. Turn first 3 turns is controlling your opponent and just creating a little bit of tempo. Turn 4 is the setup play. Turns 5, 6, and 7 in normal decks, unless it's super late game control, you are going for the jugular. And this is just not, you have to, in every deck build, you have to have a very clear way of winning. This is exactly how I'm going to do 20 damage to your opponent's face. I don't think Banana Split contributes to win conditions enough. And it's not a completely useless card. I'll put it in C. It is better than the D tier cards we have here. I'll stick it in C. Alright. Now, Bananasaurus Rex, on the other hand, this is a freaking good card. This doesn't die to the... It has pretty low stats. So, but what is the problem of being a 3-3? The only thing a 3-3 is worse, let's say, than a 4-4 is it has the advantage of not dying to rocket science when it's played, but instead it just dies to Wrath, which is not a very good card. And it dies to like Hand of Devastation, which again, there's not a lot of decks running those. It doesn't die to Beam Me Up. It's kind of just mid-range, and this does a lot of damage and grows really quickly. Even if your opponent ends up rocket sciencing the last turn, your damage is done. This does 6 damage the turn it's played. This is a play around card. Again, it's very weak to Pogo on turn 4, so the Pogo's one of the best cards in the game. Very good answer to this. Your opponent does have to play around this because of how much damage potential this does. Again, growing this and keeping it alive. Anytime you keep this alive, you're always paid back doubly, because it has a built-in double strike. And again, this will go to 4-4 or 5-5 and just be again, at 5 costs it would have been way too expensive, but 4-4 this really, at 4 costs this has enough stat potential to just be a big threat, and your opponent can't gain too much, again, by using a rocket science or a exploding fruitcake, because they're not gaining a lot of brains off of that exchange, since this only does cost 4. I'm split between S and A for this one. I think that because this is I think in terms of how good the card actually is compared to the other 4-cost cards in the game, I will put it in A, but the reason I'm going to put this in S is because in the Mega Grow class, there's just no 4-cost cards here. This is just the easy include in any tempo deck, any aggro deck that's the Mega Grow class. If there were better 4s, even Repeat Moss, Repeat Moss is not a 4. You don't play Repeat Moss on turn 4 with Captain Combustible. You play this earliest on turn 5 with one of his superpowers. So, because of the utter void of 4s in the Mega Grow class, therefore you're going to be including Bananasaurus Rex in really virtually most Mega Grow decks. I'm going to put that in S tier. Alright, and speaking of S tier, Plant Food, easy S tier. I mean, what Mega Grow deck does not have 3 copies of Plant Food in it? You can run 4, I like 3, because if you end up with too many Plant Foods and not enough minions, it's going to hand screw you. So I really feel like 3 is the lucky number for Plant Food. The easy S tier, this is the most efficient, besides for your superpowers. Again, you got like Time to Shine, which is the most broken superpower in the game, that just does an instant bonus attack for 1. I mean, I'll get to this in the tier list, in the superpower tier list, how freaking broken Time to Shine is, but easily the best superpower in the game. Spoilers, this is just the most efficient finisher in the game. Adding one, it didn't even have to add 1/1. Now, I want to explain something. How come Plant Food is so amazing at 4, but Lurch for Lunch, let's say on the zombie side, costs 2? It doesn't seem fair. And the answer is, again, very, very simply, that Plant Food can be played. Plant Food can be... You don't invest anything into Plant Food. It's the difference, again, between, let's say, like Rocket Science and Shamrocket. If you have your guy on the field, you just play Plant Food. You know exactly what's going to happen. In order to save 2 brains for Lurch for Lunch on the zombie side, which again, the 2-cost Brainy card, which does a bonus attack, your guys all have to stay on the field and survive, and maybe that guy will get removed and you're not going to be able to get the Lurch for Lunch. And thank you so much, Squarehead. You can also, in the later game, be able to play a minion, even just like on turn 5. Bonk Choy, Plant Food, just getting 4 damage to your opponent's face sometimes just finishes off your opponents, or on turn 6 or 7. This is just a staple to have in every Mega Grow deck. This is really one of the best finishing cards in the entire game. Again, if you have smaller cards that have grown, like your Black Eyed Peas, like your Triceratops, this just ends up being even better. This is not a good combo with Repeat Moss typically, unless by some miracle your Repeat Moss lasts on the field through the turn that it's played. And then it's amazing because it'll make it do 2 bonus attacks. It also adds 1/1, which is fine. It didn't even need that. Easy S tier, just because I can't think of a Mega Grow deck, basically, that doesn't have 3 copies of Plant Food in it. All right, here's Repeat Moss. Again, this I feel like I've already covered Repeat Moss. You're basically only using this with Captain Combustible, because using it with more expensive tricks is just not worth it. Even Vegetation Mutation, I could see the argument for this, but again, that only does 4. If you're using this with Captain Combustible Superpowers, on the other hand, on turn 5, you get the 6 damage combo with Blazing Bark, or if you have on turn 6, if you have Blazing Bark and Time to Shine, then you have an 18 damage combo. Even if you just have Embiggen and Time to Shine, so then on turn 6, that is going to be a 12 damage combo, which is just ridiculous. Using this with Fertilizer is way too slow. Again, that's turn 7, only does 5 damage. Really using this with Grape Responsibility, it's just too slow. You're mostly only using this, again, with Captain Combustible. With Green Shadow, who also has Embiggen, which will add 2/2, so you have a turn 5 combo. But then what do? Like, what is your other tricks that you're playing? People always complain when I run Repeat Moss and Captain Combustible. Fry, you're not running enough tricks. You got to start using Banana Bombs, and you start using Berry Blast in order to activate your Repeat Moss. That's too late. You're not trying to make a Repeat Moss combo on turn 8 or 9. You're trying to do it on turns 5 and 6. That's when, really, turn 6 is like the magic Repeat Moss turn. And this is really, again, extremely good with Captain Combustible and pretty bad with actually every other Mega Grow hero. Again, Chompzilla has no powers to activate this. Who's the other Mega Grow hero? Would be, again, Grass Knuckles has Time to Shine, does not have Embiggen. So Time to Shine, how are you going to grow this? So on turn 7, you're going to go Repeat Moss and Vegetation Mutation, so you do 4 on Time to Shine, so it's a 12 damage combo. On turn 7, that's a 3-card combo. It's just, this is really Captain Combustible only, but again, in Captain Combustible, this card is so amazing. There's no reason ever not to run this in a Captain Combustible deck, seriously. I can't imagine a Captain Combustible deck that's like, oh no, get rid of the Repeat Moss, it's a bad idea. Just don't rely on tricks, only rely on superpowers. Again, the big synergy, of course, is Split P, because that will give you those superpowers in your hand. You gotta let your opponent ping yourself ping your face for a lot of little non-bullseye to get that big Repeat Moss combo in the end. I'm gonna give this an A, and it's just for Captain Combustible. For every other hero, it's probably down in like C or D or F, to be honest. And Chompzilla, this probably is an F card. But because it's so amazing, I'm with just the one hero, and it's just ridiculously broken, I'm gonna give it an A just for Captain Combustible, guys. For no other heroes at all. Savage Spinach. The problem, this looks like it would have a lot of synergies. Like, you could Savage Spinach, evolve this, and then on turn 5, let's say now you're shooting Starfruit, which is a Smarty card. I don't know where Smarty is. This will be able to have 4 attack now, which, again, it doesn't add health. I feel like if the Savage Spinach would add 2/2 instead of just 2 attack to all your guys, that would be sort of like a different version of the Onion Rings. Again, I do have a Green Shadow deck with, it's called like Savage Onions or something like that, where you have a lot of small cards, you're running enough leafy cards, and you have a couple ways of activating. You have your shooting Starfruit in that deck, and you can either buff your cards with Savage Spinach and then swarm the field, or you buff it with Onion Rings. Onion Rings is almost always the better card, because again, this adds health. The main weakness, if you are going to be using Savage Spinach to buff your cards, you'll have all these strong cards that just die to Bungee Plumber and die to just field clear, to any kind of splash damage. Again, the main problem with Savage Spinach is the fact that it limits the amount of decks that the whole early game, because now you have to run, like, let's say at least 3 leafy cards. And what are you going to run? You're going to run Umbrella Leaf? Like, I guess Bong Choy is one good option. So let's see what the actual good, let's say, Mega Grow leafy cards are. So you have Bong Choy. This is fine in basically any deck. But then what else are you going to go? Like, Umbrella Leaf is a bad card. Lily of the Valley, Cabbage. You got, okay, this is Pea Patch is just like meh. There's not, if there were a lot of really good leafy cards, what do you got, Party Time? Like, if the leafy cards were better, then Savage Spinach would be better. But since you got to run a bunch of trash in every single Savage Spinach deck, it makes this card a lot worse. Again, it does have some uses. I'm not going to say this is complete garbage, but it really, again, is only used 4 cost 3/6. There's a lot better cards to be running on turn 4 than Savage Spinach. I would probably put this in B just for that one green shadow deck with the Savage Onion, but because it's basically useless, except for one deck archetype, which is very bad, I'm going to be putting in the same category as Banana Split and putting that in C tier. Here's Sky Shooter. This is, again, 4 cost 5/4. Let's say you just had a card in the game that was 4 cost 5/4. Would that be amazing? It would be okay. It wouldn't be great. Let's say you could play this on any lane. It wouldn't be great. 4 cost 5/4. It's just a bunch of stats. Still dies to that Rocket Science that turn. It's not like if it doesn't die, then it's doing tons of 5. It's okay. I mean, it doesn't grow. It's not like Bananasaurus Rex that has like this really big, if they're not able to handle it, has this really, really big cap. And the fact now that this is going to be useless unless it's on Heights lane, you really have no business running this in any deck, and I'm going to be putting this in F tier. Too bad the P's just suck in this game. But Gatling P, on the other hand, this card doesn't look as good as it is, meaning it looks pretty meh. 5 cost 5/4 stats, it has the double strike. You feel like most of the time you're going to play this, it'll just be removed, which is not true, because turn 5 is a turn that the zombies very often are going to be developing their own minions. Like, if they pass turn 5, you don't have to go Gatling P, or you can go Gatling P for 5 damage if you have a couple Ps. And there are some very good Ps, like Click P and Black Eye P. There are very good P options in the game. So it synergizes with the right types of cheap cards. If they commit a zombie, this does 10 damage to their face, which is half their health. If they don't commit a zombie, then this at least will do 5 to their face and absorb most of their turn, let's say 2 or 3 brains that turn, in removing the Gatling P, or else it'll do another 10 damage to their face. So it just... I don't know why this is so amazing, but every deck I run Gatling P, mostly Grass Knuckles, but even the other heroes. I forget what it's done. I don't think Captain Combustible I usually run this because it's shadowed by Repeat Moss and B-Rex, but every time I run Gatling P, it just carries the game, and I'm putting it in S tier. I can't even explain necessarily why this is so good. I guess it's like, if you're running an aggro deck, 5 damage is so valuable, and just comparing this, let's say, if you get a Plant Food for 5 damage, that's usually a stronger Plant Food. That's on the high end of Plant Food. And this not only does that 5 damage bonus attack to your face, but it puts a humongous, really, really dangerous guy in the field that they must remove immediately or else they're going to die. And even if they, again, remove this 1-for-1, I guess you upgraded another card, but usually you're upgrading a weaker card, like Sting Bean or whatever. This is actually very good with Sting Bean in the water lane if you're Grass Knuckles. It's usually the other P I run, because it's a little harder to counter in the water lane. I'm putting it in S tier. This is just taking over too many games. If you're wondering how well Gatling P actually does in the course of games, just look up Fry 'em Up Gatling P, and you'll see the magic of how this just carries. It's just like a mini trickster. I don't really get it. I don't actually get why Gatling is so good, but I'm putting it in S tier because it's amazing. Here's Onion Rings. This is a very good card. You can build decks around Onion Rings with every hero, even Captain Combustible. Captain Combustible is good because you have Puff Shrooms, which are free cards. So playing this on turn 5, the problem with this is that you lose a lot of tempo on turn 5 when you play it. So it's a 5 cost 4/4. It's going to make the zombies really difficult to keep in check that turn. But if you're playing this with, again, if you're playing with Captain Combustible on turn 5, just playing a Puff Shrooms, now it's a 5, on turn 5, you're putting 2 4/4s on the field. Ridiculous amount of stats. Also with the Solar class, you can combine this with Lil Buddy. So for Chompzilla, again, turn 5, you have 2 4/4s, heal yourself for 2. Amazing, amazing stats. Basically, the way that you're trying to play Onion Rings, you don't want to be playing Onion Rings in a deck where you're playing minions every turn, because you're just not going to have enough minions in your hand. So you really want to sort of play this as a mid-range control deck, so you're controlling them for the first couple turns. If they play a minion, you stick a minion on the field to counter them, but if they don't play anything, you just pass and hoard those minions in your hand. And then you can just combine Onion Rings with everything. I think Onion Rings with Umbrella Leaf is okay, because again, it's very good with team-ups, because then you can play a lot of guys in the field. With Admiral Navy Beam, let's say in Green Shadow, I'll go to the Smarty class because that's probably where the best Onion Ring deck is. Even just any one-drop, especially amphibious team-ups. Admiral Navy Bean's a 4/4. Lyman Pleurodon becomes a 4/4. Even like Shellery is a 4/4 team-up for 1. You can really just like take over the game on turn 5 to a point where you're just going to have too many big minions for them to be efficiently removed. They're going to be running 3 or 4, rocket scientists or fruitcakes in their deck. And they're just not going to be able to deal with them, especially to deal with 1-cost cards using a 2 or 3-cost cards. Not very good. The other notable combo with Onion Rings is Shooting Starfruit. Shooting Starfruit is a very bad card because, again, it's a 2/2 on 5. But making this into a 4/4, once they commit enough brains, the zombie hero, to not be able to remove the Shooting Starfruit, you stick us on the field. This is going to do 20 damage that turn. Absolutely ridiculous. It is a very good card. It's very limited in its archetype. You really used this successfully, though, Onion Rings with every hero. I don't know if I'm going to quite put it in S tier, because it's probably not quite as good as the other cards, but I'm going to put it very high A tier. It's a very, very viable strategy. Again, very limited amount of decks. It's a very, very limited strategy for Onion Rings. You can even go Onion Rings Pineclone since they work together with the same shrooms and the same sorts of cards. I'm going to give it a nice high A tier. Almost could be S. It's not quite as good as the S tier cards. I'm not saying it's not as good, it's just not as useful because there's a very limited deck archetype that it can be used in. Alright. Keep it going. Plucky Clover. Not a good card. It's just way too expensive. This mostly just gives you stats. Sometimes it's very bad stats because there's a bunch of 1 or 2 cost event cards that, then this is just a 5 cost 2/5 or 3/5. Really not good. Drawing cards is on turn 5 is way too late. That's not the time of the game. If this was like a cheaper card, let's say this was like a 3 cost 1/3, I think this would actually be viable because then you're drawing cards at least turn 3. That would be a decent. You're also not drawing cards in your deck. You're conjuring random event cards that will not necessarily have synergy with your deck. Plucky Clover is really just not a good card. I'm not going to say it's completely useless. It's not as bad as the Fs, but every once in a while, again, this triggers your Dino Roars. It synergizes not really with Captain Cucumber because that makes this actually just have less attack. I know the icon says 1/4. It has 5 health. Who cares? This really is too expensive. This really would need. I feel like Plucky Clover would be a really good idea at 3 cost and a little less health. Moving right along. You think this should be in cringe tier? I'll put it in D. I don't think it's actually that bad, especially if you have like dinosaurs in your deck. Event cards are above average. They're pretty good. There's a couple that are really bad, but they're not bad. In D. All right. Ooh, Pod Fighter. So this was a card I used to think was really, really bad, but I found a lot of very good Pod Fighter combo decks. So this is actually going to be one of the uses of Torchwood. Where did I put Torchwood in the end? I forgot that Torchwood actually combines very well with Pod Fighter. It actually is a useful combo. Again, we want to sort of, on turn 6, then the Pod Fighter will do a bonus stack of 5, and then you can actually combine that, depending on who your hero is, with free cards. So it's very, very good with cards like Puffshroom, which is a free bonus attack, or Lil Buddy, which will make it do free bonus stacks. That'll be with Chompzilla. Very good with, let's say, Shroom for 2. Just very cheap cards in order to make this do. I've had a lot of success. You can either ramp to Pod Fighter. You can do it with Captain Combustible, where you can do like a combo where you play Pod Fighter. On turn 6, just look at this combo, guys. On turn 6, you play Pod Fighter, and then you use Captain Combustible Super to give us a 7 attack, and then you play 1 or 2 Puff Shrooms. And this card does 14 damage to your opponent's face. Really cool combos with Pod Fighter. I'm actually going to grab Torchwood right now because I forgot about this combo and put this up in C tier, thinking out of D into C, because again, there is a top level. C means there are some top tier, like competitive decks that it is an important part of. And I really do think Torchwood is a pretty good combo. Again, on turn 6, if you just play Torchwood and then a couple of Puff Shrooms, this does this is 15 damage if you can pull that combo, or 10 if you have just the 1 Puff Shroom. So that's actually on turn 6. That is actually a very viable combo. So Torchwood's getting upgraded. Where do we? This is useful not just with one. It's mostly good again with Chompzilla, and Captain Combustible will have base cards. I really have never been able to use this with Green Shadow and with Grass Knuckles because they don't have the free cards. Because once you have to start spending 1-cost cards to activate its ability, it becomes a lot worse. That means you only have like turn 7 combos, and it's a lot weaker. So it's useful only with 2 heroes. It's pretty good with them. I'm going to give it a solid B. And it actually is. It's probably about the same as Bonk Choy. It's better than Muscle Sprout. Why is Muscle Sprout in B? This isn't a very good card. Alright, Muscle Sprout's going down to C, and Pop Fighter's going to B. I just can't have these two in the same class. Pop Fighter's so much better than Muscle Sprout. Okay, Muscle Sprout's good in a couple decks, too. Fine. Muscle Sprout's very low B, and Pod Fighter's very high B. We'll call it a day here. We'll do it like this. High B tier. Nice, solid card. Oh my gosh. Guys, Potted Powerhouse is so bad. This is actually, for me, just going in freaking please delete tier. The only time you ever see Potted Powerhouse in any competitive deck is when you have Pine Clone and Molkill turns into a freaking 3/3. Can you make this card not exist? It's not good, guys. The reason why Potted Powerhouse, besides for screwing up Pine Clone Molkill combo, oh my gosh, I hate it when that happens, is if this is in your starting hand, then you're still going to need a way to activate it. Like, this is only good with Grass Knuckles, because then on turn 6, you could go Grass Knuckles. You have to have exactly Time to Shine in your hand. You're able to go Potted Powerhouse, Time to Shine. If Captain Combustible, there's always going to be better options like Repeat Moss that are cheaper than this. If you don't get this in your starting hand, it's useless. Like, it requires so much to just grow your cards. Like, what's growing on the field with Captain Combustible? What you're using this with, like, Muscle Sprout, and you have it in your hand. This is clogging a whole slot, a whole card in your hand while you're trying to make your Muscle Sprout grow by playing a bunch of small minions. It means you have one card that you're just not able to play to grow your Muscle Sprout in the first place. I know if you have this in your hand, the Triceratops every single time it grows is fine, and your Raptors every single time it grows, and you'll end up with this one big card. Every once in a while you can just go Potted Powerhouse, Time to Shine, but you need the Time to Shine. Maybe I'll try again the Grass Knuckles deck with Split Pea and Body Gourd that you're basically always going to get Time to Shine, and then you do OTK Potted Powerhouse. But for the most part, Potted Powerhouse is really, really bad to running. It's so unreliable, because again, you need to get, if you don't get this in your starting hand, and you get this on turns 4 and 5, it's too late. It's a 5-cost 3/3. Maybe by the time you play, it'll be a 5-cost 5/5. It's just, it's a fundamental flaw in the card of how long this needs to be in your hand, and how hard it is to activate. At least like Valk, killing a lot of minions happens a lot faster than growing a lot of minions. And for that reason, I'm freaking putting this in cringe tier. Competitively, maybe this would be in D. I really wish that this card would be removed from the game. I think maybe as like a 3-cost 1/1, maybe this would be better. I don't know. It's too expensive. I don't really know what to do with Potted Powerhouse. Piece of garbage. Here's Red Planet. This really has no competitive use because it costs 5. Again, 5 costs. Really, any environment that costs even 3 or more on the planet side is typically very bad because it will just be removed by a zombie environment, and especially this that you don't have like the cool combos. Like at least Venus Flytrap Planet that costs 1 less, by the way, which is huge. You can get like this immediate value out of like Heartachoke and a heal combo with Little Buddy or something like that. But I don't know. You're gonna Red Planet, and then what are you gonna do? You're gonna stick a Repeat Moss in here, and then you're gonna use a 1-cost trick like Whisk Trick, and even if you somehow this does not get covered on turn 5 and you're able to get your Repeat Moss and you have a 1-cost trick on turn 6, so then the Repeat Moss does 7 damage. We've had a couple decks where we run Red Planet, but it's just too expensive. I really think that this would be maybe a little less stats at a 3-cost card. It's really just, as a zombie environment, this would be good, but as a plant, it's just so expensive and it's such a liability to have, and so circumstantial this is going to be good. And again, usually when you play this, if the zombie on turn 5, if they've left over even 1 brain, or 2 brains for every hero, but 1 brain for a lot of heroes, they'll be able to just cover this. A 5-cost card can be destroyed by a 1-cost card. That's really the problem with this, and for that reason, there's really no top tier decks where you're going to run Red Planet, and it's not completely useless. I'm just going to stick this in D. Did our trash go off the... our cringe went off the bottom, but that's fine. Cringe is off the bottom, folks. Maybe I'll do some shrinky again, just to make the cringe tier visible. How would I do this? There's no. I think it's like unfixable. It's fine. The trash is off the bottom, guys. It's totally okay. All right, gotta hurry up here. Okay, so here is Whipvine. This is actually a good stat card. 5 cost 5/5. Move a zombie. This would be good in like arena mode if the game had arena where you're drafting cards. But in a competitive scene, your 5 cost cards need to be winning you matches, and Whipvine just does not do that. Every once in a while, you'll see Whipvine. I wish there were more uses for this card because the stats are actually pretty good. It's just so over. Just because games don't last more than 5-6 turns, usually on the highest level of the game, it just doesn't do enough. It just doesn't do enough, and for that reason, I'm putting it in D tier. It's so sad because I think this card has good stats, and maybe as a 3 cost 3/3 would have had a lot more potential. Too bad. Here's Potatosaurus. This card is a little overrated, but not very much. Like, this really screws control decks, like Control Boogaloo, even some Professor Brainstorm and Morticia. The fact it's untrickable make it a big guy that just can't be removed, you know? They're going to need a minion to remove. So it's very weak to Pogo, but if they don't have Pogo in their deck, this is just such a beast. It's not... They can stick this in front of a zombie, so you can control it. It doesn't take over the game when you play it, though. And your 6 cost, again, turn 6 to 7, you got to try winning then. I'm not going to say this is bad. It's a lot of tempo. It draws you a card. It activates your Dino Roars. Gives you a root. It's untrickable. You can always combine this. Let's set this up on turn 6 and do some kind of like bonus attack, plant food, time to shine combo the next turn. It's viable. This is overrated though because again, it doesn't do much right when you play it other than just be a lot of stats, and they can really just stall by sticking a little Beam Me Up or something in front of it and then have all that extra brains to make a combo that's going to make them win. So I do think this is overrated. I'm going to put this in B because it's just a solid card. Again, it is very expensive, especially for Mega Girl. Like, there's not a lot of decks you end up putting Potatosaurus in. Again, it's in terms of how good it is, it's better than B, but just because of the way games go that you're trying to win on turns 5, 6, and 7, and it doesn't do that much when you play it. There's a very limited number of decks you can play this with. Again, this hard counters Control Boogaloo. So really is a big problem, and that's why I'm putting in B, which makes it a solid card. But all right. Oh my gosh. Bam freaking Boozle. This is going in cringe tier. You can't even... Oh, it's so... Why? Why? Guys, 6 cost 5/6, horrible stats. Even if it was just draw 2 cards, it still would not be good. You have to cover a whole plan to do that. Forgetting about the cringe moment where the guy killed himself because I had a con man on the field. You'll see that eventually in the highlight comp and the fail comp, whatever you want to call it. I'm gonna just open this so you guys can get a good picture of where this tier list is. There we go. There we go. I guess I'll move this picture a little bit down. Okay. We're good. It's just too slow. Drawing cards on turn 6 is just really, really, really bad. I'm not even gonna elaborate on this. It's just a piece of trash garbage. Tough beats. Now, super fat beats, I mean. It's just expensive for a 6 cost card. It's not bad. This can sometimes be a 6 cost 10/10 if there's enough minions on the field. It is circumstantial, and again, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything other than just be stats on the field. It doesn't grow. It doesn't have any of the abilities of Potatosaurus, making it completely outclassed. I kind of wish cards like this were better. Maybe if big removal was nerfed, this card would be better, but right now, unfortunately, this is just ending up in freaking D tier. And the last card is Espresso Fiesta. Espresso Fiesta is completely outclassed by Plant Food. Plant Food is almost always a better idea just because it costs half. Usually Espresso Fiesta, you're not like... On turn 8, you could set up a 4-drop and then Plant Food, and hopefully that'll be enough damage to get your opponent either dead or within kill range that turn. Espresso Fiesta is... It's just too expensive. I feel like this would be viable at like 6 or 7. As like a really solid finisher. At 8, it's just way too slow. Just compare this to like Dragon. Cards that actually just take over the game. It's too circumstantial because you have to have the right guy on the field that's going to finish up. Every once in a while, this is fine. I'm not going to say it's horrible, but it's very outclassed by Plant Food. I'm going to just put this in C because every once in a while, I don't use this card very much because I don't think it's very good on the highest level of the game, but every once in a while, Espresso Fiesta just ruins. I mean, the amount of damage this can do is just do easily 20 damage in a turn by the time turn 8 is around. Again, it's slow, but it's not horrible. It's not horrible. I think even with Magnifying Glass, for example, which doesn't last on the field from turn to turn since it only has 1 health, it's much better, let's say, on turn 7 to do, or, turn 8 even, to Magnifying Glass and plant food, which does a lot of damage, 8-9 damage, as opposed to waiting till turn 11 in Magnifying Grass Espresso. It's just way too slow. And thank you so much, Captain Ufamar. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed. I gotta go. But that was the Mega Grow tier list. Let me know in the comment section below what you would like, which tier list I would like to see me do next, and especially if you have any creative ideas. Like someone gave an idea, what about all the tribes of the game, like mushrooms and roots and all those kinds of things, bananas. Like make a tier list out of that, and I definitely plan on doing this. So if you have any really good creative ideas, let me know in the comment section below. Don't tell me to do a legendary tier list, because the legendaries are already like sort of on this tier list. I might do that, but I feel like they're mostly going to end up in whatever tier they're on in the class ones. If you can think of anything that's sort of not just the cards in the game, something a little more out of the box, that would be really appreciated. Let me know in the comment section below. Anyway, guys, that was the Mega Grow tier list. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace. This is Fry. Alright, guys. I actually have to go. I do not have time for the daily challenge because I have an appointment right now at 4 o'clock, so I'm going to have to get off the stream. That was a great stream, though. I'm really happy with the way that turned out. I will see you guys tonight for some Legends of Runeterra, and tomorrow for some more PvZ Heroes. And rate cards by fun. That's not a bad idea, to just make a fun tier list. It's not a bad idea at all. Should we do a raid to someone who's playing Legends of Runeterra? We have a lot of viewers, so let's raid a Legends of Runeterra person. Quick raid. Who are we gonna get? Who are we gonna get? Let's get a nice big fat raid here. We'll try to get someone with like... do I recognize anyone here? Boda? Does he speak English? No. South American. I'm gonna find someone who speaks English here. Russian. Huh. Not a lot of big streamers, huh? Bruised? By God? What is this? Oh, they're showing me an ad. Followers only chat? Okay, you're not getting rated. Too bad. These guys, they put on follower only chat. They're trying to get followers and you get no raids. Horrible. I think this guy's South American.
Você é louco, mano.
No.
Tá ligado? A Alex é mais chata de você lidar. Mas a
just so my audience will be able to understand what they're talking about. Man, not a lot of good options here. Do we just raid Swim because he's the only English streamer? Xenaton? Alright, let's get Swim. Screw it.
I kind of want to cut down to
Go, raid him up, guys. We're raiding Swim.
I've never liked 3 Vengeance. This has always been like a bit of a boner card for BBG. Like even Alan often isn't running 3 Vengeance.
Let's go. How many people do we got?
I don't know. I mean, 3 is just, and I know it's a control deck, like I get it. But, 3 Vengeance makes sense in the Endure meta. Yeah, sure. Yo, fry him up. Yo, thanks for the raid, man. I appreciate it. So yeah, we're just kind of building decks for the new patch. I'm not sure if I would be in 3 Monkey Idol. I do like it in this deck. It is really good, but now that it's kind of conflicting with Petty Officer, and I do think Petty Officer is probably better at 2 health, I think I might have to kick like 1 Monkey Idol and chill a little bit. Could see cutting down on like 1 Parlay or cutting down on 1 Rekindler as well. There's different directions to take this in. There's what's Gangplank's card? Gangplank.